This meeting of the West Haymarket JPA to order. To my left is Councilwoman Tammy Ward, and to my right is Regent Tim Clare. And this is a public meeting subject to the State Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is located in the back of the chamber. And the clerk will read each item on our agenda, and staff will then come forward to present. Public comment will be taken on each item. Each speaker should state their name and address for the record, and note that testimony is limited to 5 minutes on each item. And with that, Casey, could you please call the first item?
Approval of the minutes from the JPA meeting held April 30th, 2020.
I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Claire, second by Ward. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Claire. Motion carried. Next item is the approval of the April and May 2020 payment registers and review of the April and May 2020 expenditure reports.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. He's thanking me for taking off my K-State masks.
I see.
So before I got into the payment registers, I just wanted to go over kind of where we're at right now with COVID-19 and its impacts from a financial standpoint to the JPA. So I've got a short PowerPoint presentation that I want to show you real quick before I go over the details of that. So right now the JPA, just so everybody's aware of the current financial status. So we started the year with a $44.6 million in fund balance, so we've had healthy reserves, and the model has worked exactly as it was supposed to work. As you know, Dan Marvin and Don Hers set that up originally, which was to build up those occupations taxes over time, build up the cash reserves, and then as the bond payments went up, which they do next year, we're in a good position to be able to pay those off. And that's worked to date. So it's been successful. So we currently have a $36.4 million fund balance. Of that, $24.6 million is the legally required amount that we're required to maintain per our facilities agreement. And then we have $11.8 million in surplus. So the good thing, all of our bond payments have been made in full, and there is no question of whether or not we'll be able to make those moving forward. With the reserves that we have, we can sustain this over a short period of time. Now, if this thing went on for 5 years, that might be more of a struggle, but right now we're in good financial position. We also know that COVID-19, the impacts have been industry specific. So alcohol sales had a great month in March. We know that. And so did grocery. But there's also areas like the ones that are impacted that generate occupation taxes for the West Haymarket JPA. And you can see we have 2 months of data there. So the April's numbers are in dark. They're the dark blue. And then the light blue is for the May numbers. You can see car rentals down significantly in May, 76% comparing to the prior year. Same with hotels and bars and restaurants, down 46%. So we've seen significant impacts in the current 2 months based off of the health directives that impacted these industries. So total overall collections for May were down 53% for occupation taxes. Right now, based on those impacts, last year in 18-19, we collected $17.6 million. At this point in time, we're estimating about $15.3 million, so pretty significant drop. We know, or that should rebound into the next fiscal year. But what that rebound looks like, I think that's the questionable part, and how many that are part of this industry come back in full after getting through these last few months. So that's we don't know yet. The also other thing that we don't know is, what are the impacts if there's football or not, and that residual impact to our economy as we move forward, which would be going into our next fiscal year as well. Parking revenues, another area that's been greatly impacted. So these are primarily down from special events not occurring at the arena. That's part of it, but also the monthly lease of the garages, since there hasn't been as much parking down there. So that's been an impact as well. So this is another area that could be impacted moving forward, especially if, because of this pandemic, we see shifts in the amount of people that are officing downtown and parking in the 3 JPA garages. That could have impacts moving forward as well as football and special event income coming through the garages. So other impacts, we have premium seat renewals coming up for our suites, loges, and club seats in the arena. We did have a delay in the subsidies from the IRS that were the Build America bonds that were originally issued to pay for these. We actually just received that, so I'm happy to say that money has come in, and we also got interest on the delay too from the IRS. So it was like $11,000. Oh, in total, it was about 3.6 million. Yeah. Interest earnings, we know, are going to decrease moving forward just based off of lower treasury rates, which is one of the areas that we primarily invest the JPA money in. And then Pinnacle Bank Arena events, what does that look like? And I'm sure Tom's going to be speaking a little bit more to that later. So, so as we move forward, post-COVID, what do these look like? That's, I think, what we're kind of analyzing now as we move forward. But currently, just so everybody knows, our bond payments have been made in full. We have a generous surplus available to help us through this difficult economic time. The 2020 occupation taxes that we're estimating to collect are still 8% above the original projections of where we thought we would be at the end of this year. And that's, as we move forward, I think those will, again, like I mentioned, rebound after we get in, or when we get into the next fiscal year, as more restaurants and bars to reopen again. So that's kind of an overview, I guess, right now of where we are before I went into the payment register, and I just wanted to give all the board members a general overview status of where we're at in the impacts.
In the past, we've talked about where we were in relation to where the budget was with the occupation tax, and we were usually 11 to 12 years ahead of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we at now?
With that 8%, I believe that put us maybe at year 2023. So we're still a little bit ahead, but compared to, I think the last time I gave you that, we were tracking 27% ahead and more in line with like year 2028. So, a large decrease based on what we're going to collect this fiscal year. But when we move into the next fiscal year, assuming, we don't have more measures that would shut restaurants down, we should rebound, closer to hopefully where we were at in the last fiscal year. So hopefully this is temporary, and as the economy starts to recover and we move into our next fiscal year, we'll also have recovery on the JPA finances as well.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Any other questions in regard to kind of the overview? If not, I'll.
But what's happening in the country with regard to? I mean, we're not unique to other places throughout the country, if not the world. how are they doing? How are their financings going? You talk to people all over. What's happening in other places?
I think it just varies a lot based on the structure of the financial revenues that you get, and also local economies as well. So, I talked to another director in Connecticut, and he's based outside of New York. Well, they're 98% funded through property taxes, and a lot of people from New York are trying to move into Connecticut, which is driving up their housing prices. So, that might be a good thing for them as they move forward with budgets, because housing prices are increasing because of that. Versus, some cities in the Midwest like Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, that are more reliant on sales tax and have more of a balanced kind of revenue portfolio between sales tax and property tax. And so, the economic impact is greater, and especially when you look at Lincoln and our reliance on sales tax, and the JPA's reliance primarily on occupation taxes, that's driven by a service industry that's been greatly impacted. We have more of an economic impact, and that impact's felt right away compared to maybe others in other areas of the country. Okay. With that, I'm done with the presentation. So I want to go back to the payment registers. So within your packet, under the tab Payment Registers, on the second page in that, you have your April payment register right after the memo. And that April payment register has totals of $1,143,274 in operating expenditures. I'm going to highlight some of the key ones there. So parking management for the 3 decks was $157,173 when you add those 3 up. We had PC Sports payment of $3,759. In addition, we had the 4th quarter IMG sponsorship that the JPA collects and then distributes back to the arena of $281,540. The 4th quarter operating increment for $150,000. And then we had various amounts for arena repair and CIP maintenance issues at the arena. Those were, there's 3 kind of lines broken down there. One of $33,092, another one of $5,435, and then another line item included of $23,223.
And nothing that we gave to the foundation could ever be used to fund some of those?
I think that's a possibility on CIP items with board approval. The last time we checked the foundation balances, I think they had dipped below the original $2 million because of the market losses because of COVID-19. That was at the end of 3/31. So right now, it should have went above that $2 million as the market regained losses.
Well, why is $2 million an issue?
I think $2 million was the original principal amount, and you could never go below that original principal amount. So anything above that $2 million could be spent on CIP type projects, but nothing below the original amount. I think that was per the original funding agreement that was set up.
Yeah. It's there. We put it there to help cover costs.
Chris Connolly, City Law Department. When that was put together, the idea was that we were never going to go below the $2 million. We wanted to save that money and only use the interest money to do these various projects. So if there's a hit taken because of the market forces, and it drops below the 2 million, then we wouldn't be using those funds to do these particular projects. But as Brandon said, if it's recovering now and it's back above $2 million, let's say it's at 2.2 million, we'd have $200,000 that we can use for these projects. And that was sort of a stop loss so that we didn't spend it all down. We don't want to spend that money. We wanted to leave that principal right where it was.
Can you check on that?
Yes. Yeah, we'll look at the balances. Also included, you've got a payment to DEC of $212,000, of which we bill back about 69% of that to customers. So 31% of that stays with the JPA. And then we also had a second round of parking management payments for the 3 decks for March, and that was just due to when the bills came in. We ended up paying 2 months worth. That's in April. Within the May portion, which is on the 4th page of the payment register in your packet, you can see we had total payments for May of $775,174. The largest payment in that month was the $500,000 that the board agreed to donate to the Parks Foundation for the development of the Park 5 block per that redevelopment agreement. We had a PC Sports payment of $3,626. You had a few various repairs and maintenance. That's typical. $22,073, $8,934, and then $31,282. And then there was also a DEC payment of $206,127. Again, 69% of that's billed back to the customers, and 31% of that stays with the JPA.
Same comment. Is there any of these expenses that can be used out of that contribution to the foundation?
Potentially on the repairs and maintenance.
Right, the bottom 3.
Yes. And we can take a look at that. If there's any questions, any more questions on the payment register?
Any more questions?
Okay. We have also in your packet, there's a few financial statements. Under the tab West Haymarket, Statement of Revenues, Expenditures, and Changes in Fund Balance. You can see the West Haymarket statement as of April 30th. We had revenues at 22.5 million, expenditures of 24.3 for a deficit of 1.8 million, and then an ending balance of 42.9 million. Oh, sorry. So that tab is after the expenditure reports. We should have a front tab that kind of looks like this. I assume yours is in green there. I think you want to keep flipping a little further.
I have this.
Flip after the expenditure reports. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Yeah. So that has the April 30th, and then we'll also, after that is the May 30th. So that's the report we put out on a monthly basis, so you can see the overall revenues and expenses of the JPA, and then also the fund balances. So as at the end of April 30th, we had 42.9 million in fund balances. If you flip to the next page, you can see. I'm sorry.
Where does this correlate to the 34.6? I believe is what I saw.
The 36.4.
36.4.
Yeah. So if you look at the end of that on the next page of that May 31st report, I think, Tim, you need to go back one more. Or sorry, forward.
Is different.
Bear with me.
This one? 36.4? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the fund balance at the end of May 31st. So that 36.4 million is, our reserves or balances that we rely on for the legal requirements in the surplus as well. After those reports, there is a tab that has the Pinnacle Bank income statements. And for Pinnacle Bank income statements, we have 2 months included in there. So you have the April 30th report for Pinnacle Bank Arena. And you could see at the end of April 30th, they had an ending balance at the bottom of about 77,000. Started the month with retained earnings or balances of 882,000. So a loss of 805,000 for the month of April. And then if you go to May 31st, I'm sorry, that 882,000 was the start of the year. Sorry. So this is cumulative. So at the end of May 31st, we had a net income loss for the year of $1,042,000, which took that ending retained earnings at negative 159,000. And this report kind of leads also into what we'll be talking about within the next item, which is the transfer of 600,000. So this kind of gives you the snapshot of where we're at financially at Pinnacle Bank. And that's based off the impacts that we're feeling from COVID-19. And Tom can discuss more the impact of the events that have been delayed at Pinnacle Bank Arena because of COVID-19 as we move forward.
So how will that $600,000 payment impact this? Will it take this ending balance down so we'd have 35.7?
Yeah, so that would take that balance down. Now moving forward, we're also still collecting occupation taxes as we move forward. So our balances, since all our debt payment obligations have been paid for the year, should continue to increase a little through as we go to year end, but an additional 600,000 would come out of that surplus account.
Would it be possible for the next time to show, to have obviously have this with the 600,000 on it, assuming we approve that today, but then also a guesstimate as to where we think we're going to be towards the end of the year relative to the fact that we don't have the bond payments and we're current on all those, and what we anticipate the occupation tax to be in the next, in the next few months, just to get some predictability to where we think we're going to be.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Other questions? Okay. Are there folks Zooming in who would like to testify on this item or speak to this item? All right. Hearing no one Zooming in to speak or coming forward in the chamber, I would accept a motion on this item.
Zooming fast.
All right.
That's so moved.
A second.
Okay. Moved by Ward, the approval of the April and May 2020 payment registers, moved by Ward and seconded by Claire.
Well, one
Further discussion?
I would like to know if we can make that out of the foundation, rather than having those expenses come out of the JPA, but have them come out of the foundation. I'd prefer to have those payments come from there for the maintenance and and repairs.
And we'll take a look at that and look at the current balances at the foundation. And then to get the money from the foundation, then we'd have to come back to the board for
But we can
approval.
approve it at the next,
Yes.
next meeting,
yes.
okay.
Are you preferring to delay, or did
No,
you
no,
want to?
no, 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 we can go forward, but I just want, we put that money there for a reason.
Yeah, the money for that endowment is really supposed to be used for the, kind of the JPA area, not strictly streetscape, but that kind of thing. And so there may be some limitations on what we can use that money for. The items that were discussed there included some computer equipment and that sort of thing.
That you
Probably
can't,
not
no.
going to fall in there.
No.
But there may be some others that perhaps we could. Caleb, who I believe is on the line here somewhere, has a matrix that kind of lays out all the things that we're supposed to be using that endowment for. And we wanted something that was pretty well established so that there wasn't any question about whether or not it should or shouldn't. So those are the kinds of things that we can review and determine whether or not they're proper for the endowment.
Yeah, I mean, we put that money there for that purpose.
Correct.
And so to the extent we can, I'd like to use that, if that's okay with you all.
And I think initially, there was a thought that we want the endowment to grow as much as we can. And perhaps there may have been a small handful of things that might have been paid by the endowment, but instead were paid by JPA to allow it to grow. Now that things have changed, we're in a different situation, I can see where it makes more sense to use the endowment for that purpose.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
No, please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes,
motion carried. Next item is resolution authorizing an additional operational increment expenditure in the amount of $600,000 for fiscal year 2019-2020 for the Pinnacle Bank Arena for lost revenue due to COVID-19 restrictions on events at Pinnacle Bank Arena.
I think Tom and I are likely going to share this because I'm sure you have a lot of questions also about the arena operations. So as I noted in the last financial report, as of May 31st, we had negative retained earnings. There's still cash balances in the account at the arena, but moving forward in order to continue meeting operations and to make payroll, we'll need a transfer to ensure that continues to happen. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Tom, and then if you have questions, I'm available as well.
Sure, thank you. Tom Lorenz, General Manager with Pinnacle Bank Arena. Just to give some context, our last event was the Boys State Basketball Tournament. Normally, Boys State Basketball over those 18 games in 3 days would draw 65,000 people. And from the suggestions from the health department and working with NSAA, only families were allowed in, so that 65,000 went down to 5,000 people for that event. Since the end of Boys State Basketball and the beginning of March, we haven't done any major event or really any event at that point. So what you're seeing is a lack of income coming back in from our generated events. Where there's no parking income coming in, there's no food and beverage income, there's no rental income, nor is there any ticket sales generating taxes at this point. So we're in the position where, as Brandon noted, the retained earnings that we had, we've used those up, and to get us back into continuing operations through the end of August into the next fiscal year, this $600,000 is we hope is an appropriate piece of funds that would come towards the Pinnacle Bank Arena.
Specific questions you want to ask right now, or did you want to come up, Brandon?
One thing, and Tom and I, while this isn't specifically a loan to Pinnacle Bank Arena, Tom and I have discussed looking at this as a kind of reimbursable item. So, this will end up as a liability on Pinnacle Bank Arena's account that they're going to work to send back to the JPA as their balances recover.
akin to the startup loan that we made?
Yeah, when we started up the building and we had what we called startup cash so that we could have cash banks for all the different concession stands, so we used it for some initial food and beverage purchases and those type of things. And that was $500,000 that came over. It laid on our balance sheet. It was a balance sheet item, and so it was always recognized that it was there. And through the last 6 years, as we had earnings over break even at the end of the year, we slowly paid that off, and so that balance is gone.
Right.
This would be the same type of thing, and it'll take a couple years, but and we had retained earnings the last couple of years, and so as we have retained earnings, we'll take a portion of that and pay it back. So at the end of whatever time frame we're looking at here, that $600,000 will go back to the JPA.
Tom, I want to ask you the same question. I'm sorry I'm monopolizing this, Joe.
No, I was just going to ask the same on reimbursement, so Tom's answering what I had, so.
We asked Brandon about what his colleagues are doing doing around the country. Talk a little bit about what's happening around the country.
Yeah, we saw as an industry, this is a very hard-hit industry. And it's in working with health departments across the country, listening to CDC recommendations, watching all those type of things, we saw really a shutdown of what was happening. This hit us at the end or beginning of March. March is as we're just coming out of basketball season, and while we're busy, the revenues aren't as strong. We were moving into what would be our concert season, that time of the year when it's from March through August, when we're doing major concerts, when we're seeing some higher revenue shows that come back in and kind of float that balance back up. The majority of our major concerts between now and the end of the calendar year have moved their concerts to the 2021 timeframe, or even some into 2022. It's largely because there's so many different rules that are across the country with different circumstances in different areas, that to try to put a tour together after things begin to open up is difficult. And there's also still some reticence on the part of artists to perform, and there's certainly some reticence on the part of fans to come out and be in larger gathering situations. As we see the slow opening of the opportunity to gather more people together with social distancing, with the appropriate safeguards in place, we'll start to see some things come up, but it's not that you suddenly turn the key on and we're back to doing major concerts. So the type of things we've lost so far, Elton John is the one that comes to mind. That was a sold-out show that was supposed to happen June 9th, and they've moved out into either 2021 or 2022 as they start to do those things. So that's where you see the real impact coming. As we look ahead at the next fiscal year, when that starts September 1, we're very interested to see how football goes and if basketball is able to come back with either reduced capacity or with full wide open. That'll be a help. We'll see potentially maybe one or two major things that still stay in that maybe November time frame, but really we're starting to look at a full return if things go well, and if the CDC and all the different recommending agencies look forward towards that and are positive about it. When we hit January of 2021, February, March, we should see some return of larger shows, and that really makes the difference in our bottom line.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So Tom, could you talk about what it looks like at PBA for a concert where we're social distance, like clearly here?
Sure.
So what?
Well, so the next thing we get to do is we'll be doing a Lincoln Public Schools graduation. And we work closely with Pat and Ben and Scott from the health department. They've been extremely helpful as we kind of look through at what social distancing looks like. And so that if we talk about what the graduates would look like for that type of an event, there's single chairs with social distancing all around, and we're able to, throughout the entire floor, because of the distances between, we're able to get those 400 or 500 graduates on the floor. As you get into the seating areas, we're working with what we call pod seating, where there's groups of 2, 4, or 6 people that can sit close together. As you work with the health department, they're terrific about explaining that the potential odds of having someone with a group of 6 that are either asymptomatic or have coronavirus is very low. So they're comfortable with those sets of 6. And what we would do then is on each row, put 2 sets of 6 in each row, and then either skip the next row or put one set of maybe 4 to 6 in that next row that's in the middle. The idea is to not only have some social distancing from the sides, but to have social distancing front to back. That's even more important. Again, when we do graduation, right on the tickets, the people have reserved areas so that there's a specific area for them to go. There's specific seats that keep people socially distanced. We're also working with LPS, telling people that masks are required. And so we have that. We'll be able to control entry point, which is another big key that we always work on about how people come into the building, multiple different areas so that people aren't all boxed up in one door location. We have multiple places for them to come in. We'll have multiple hand washing stations and hand sanitation. We'll sanitize the building between. As we worked with LPS, we made sure that there was much more time than they normally would have had in a graduation to come back in and do sanitization and to do restrooms and to get the building ready for a re-entry. And it's really a great coordination between the health department, between LPS, between our peers. ASM Global has done best practices and has really given us a lot of guidelines on the best things we can do to keep people safe. And while we're anxious and aching, like a lot of people, to do larger events, safety is the first important thing we have to do. And so we'll continue to move forward slowly and see those type of events happen and find ways that we can do some things where people are apart but still safe.
Thank you. Could, one more question, just, could you talk to us about Pinewood Bull while we're
Sure.
talking entertainment?
Excellent. No, Pinewood Bowl is, being outside, we have a little more of an advantage. And again, so we're working with the health department to see what was available to do there. And my staff has been doing multiple different drawings and multiple different renderings of seating potential and everything else, and working with the health department. And they've right now at least tentatively said that we could go back in. Our normal capacity for a seated show is around 4,800. For a standing room show is around 5,500. And that's more, it's really more influenced by parking. But they've allowed us to look back at something that's in that 2,800 range, because we'll be able to do, again, social distancing, some pod seating, more aisles, some distance between the seats. And so there are at least, it's not we're not telling you anything that's a big surprise right now. The Beach Boys is still on the schedule. They were interested in potentially playing. We're looking at that possibility. There's a couple other things that potentially could happen within that within our fall time frame. And so outside provides us some more options. People should still be wearing masks. They should still have very structured entry points, hand washing stations, all those type of things. But at outside, there's a little more flexibility with what we do. And we're excited about that possibility, and we'll see what happens. It's kind of a two-part thing in that we have to get the approval from the health department initially, and then we have to get the artists to feel comfortable, to travel, and to want to perform in those circumstances.
So
I can tell you that as we look at some of these events that maybe were canceled for this year, and not canceled, postponed, that they're anxious to come back next year, and I think we'll have a very strong season next year also.
So I was going to ask, so that we're still in the postponement, not any cancellations?
Right. We really talk about postponement, reschedule, or cancellation, and the majority of events postpone initially as they work with their own people and with the production crews and travel and all of that. Then they'll try to reschedule, and the majority of our events were rescheduled. Very few have outright canceled. And we're very happy about that, because really we're taking revenues that we would have had now and pushing them out a bit, but the revenues will still be coming in. So the outlook would be strong for the next fiscal year if all the conditions continue to improve.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for all you're doing to keep it the.
We appreciate it. We've gotten tremendous
It's
support
running.
from the staff, so
Yeah.
we really, that's outstanding for us.
Is there anyone virtually who wants to speak to this item? We'll take public comment on this item if anyone is present virtually. Seeing none, I would ask for a motion. Oh, wait, someone, does that mean someone's wanting to testify?
Jane wanted to testify.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jane.
Okay. And one about,
Jane, you might have two devices with your audio on. You might need to turn your volume down on one.
what?
It sounds like you have two items with our audio. You might need to turn your volume down. It sounds like they're picking each other up.
Okay. On the speaker?
Yeah, turn your speakers down
Okay.
while you're talking.
Okay, here now.
Go ahead, Ms. Kinsey. We aren't here. Oh, there you go. Go ahead. We can't hear you if you're talking. If you haven't started, please go ahead. Ms. Kinsey, can you hear me?
Here's something really faint.
Yeah. Do you want to, can you turn the volume back up, Ms. Kinsey? We can hear something faint. We can hear that there's something coming from your side of the monitor, but we can't hear you.
Ms. Kinsey, it looks like there are two different devices that are logged on. Maybe
Ms. Kinsey, I don't know if you can hear Jamie, but he's suggesting that maybe you could log off one of the devices and just be logged on through one of them, and we might have a better time being able to hear you. Can you hear me, Ms. Kinsey? All right, well, I'm sorry that we're having technical difficulties. We would certainly welcome your comment. If you want to email us, we can try and accept that into the record. But I apologize, we cannot hear you. And with that, I'm afraid we'll ask if there's anyone else who wants to make public comment. All right. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on item 5.
I would move authorizing item WH 2016, authorizing the $600,000.
Second.
Moved by Ward, second by Claire. Any further discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Claire.
Yes.
Motion carried. Next item sets the next meeting date for Thursday, July 23rd, 2020 at 2:30 here in council chambers.
Thank you. And with that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Claire, second by Ward. Please call the roll.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes,
Ward,
Yes.
Claire.
Yes.
we are adjourned. Thank you.